Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney, and let's talk about all the books that I read in the month of July. First and foremost, this month is interesting. Technically, I read 8 books, 8 or 10, depending on how you characterize one set of books that I read. But honestly, until I counted the amount of books that I read, I thought that I had read like 2 books. I felt really disconnected from my reading. I felt like I couldn't focus. I think I picked up at least like 6 other books in the month of July and just ended up putting them down. So I don't know. It's hard because technically I read books, I read 8 books, but I don't feel like I don't know, I feel like I didn't really absorb them. There wasn't osmosis, there was no metabolization of the books. I did have some great reads, don't get me wrong, but I would say by and large, I picked up and put down so many books. My August TBR should be out now, so you can go take a look at the silly direction that we're taking for the month of August. But overall, month of July, technically I read a lot of books, but honestly, it didn't feel like the strongest month of reading to me. To get started this month, I did read Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This is the introduction to Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series. Fig has decided to join us today, so I hope you can see her lurking in the background right now. She's rubbing up on my back. The Throne of Glass series, I don't know what happens in that series, but what I know about what happens in book 1, Celaena Sardothien is pulled from her situation and brought to the castle, the king's castle, to compete in a test of sorts to become the king's champion, essentially to become the king's blade. There's 3 additional characters that we care about in book 1. We care about Prince Dorian, who is the prince, oddly enough. He is the one who sponsored Celaena in this competition. We have Kale, who is the king's guard, and he is primarily in charge of keeping Celaena both safe and others safe from Celaena. And then we have the princess, I think her name is Princess Nehemia. It's been a while. And she is a princess visiting from an outside kingdom, and she just happens to be in the castle at the same time as Celaena, and they kind of forge a friendship. I thought it was pretty good. Another solid opening for Sarah J. Maas. I did rate that book 3 stars. It was just okay. It was a good time, but it wasn't anything mind-blowing. So pretty average 3-star rating for Throne of Glass. Then I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, the book that is taking the internet by storm, and I loved that book. Originally rated at 4 stars. I think I'm landing on a 5-star just because of how much fun it is to go back and think about it. It's a fantasy romance book about Violet. She's essentially going to Dragon Rider school, Dragon Rider College. She was supposed to be a scribe, the historian in these worlds, but her mom was like, no, you're a something, their name is something important. You're a Beauregard or whatever. So you're going to Rider school, which is like cutthroat, high stakes. People die all the time. They die on the way to college, they die at college, they die after college, all in the name of becoming a dragon rider. The first book covers Violet's first year of school. She has a romantic interest. She has a lot of friends. I don't really want to give much away because it's such a fun read, and if you can avoid spoilers for this book, you should, because it's so silly. This book is honestly such a good fantasy for romance readers. If you were a dystopian novel reader in high school, I think you're gonna love this book. It's not God's gift to literature, it's not Shakespeare, but what it is a fun time, and I'm really excited to see how the rest of the series pans out. Next, I moved on to Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. 2 Rebeccas in the month of July. Interesting. This book is a historical fantasy romance. I believe you get the feeling when you read the book that it's sometime in the early 1900s. Essentially, there's a war going on, a war between gods. Iris is kind of torn apart by this war. Her brother is fighting and she misses him very dearly. Iris is a new journalist. She's quite young, I think 18 or 19. And so she starts writing her brother letters. These are magic letters. There's a very light element of fantasy in this book. It's more like fantasy realism or magical realism because it's not a full structure. It's very small details are fantastical. So she starts writing these letters to her brother and she thinks they're being delivered to him because they just disappear. But it turns out that these letters are being delivered to her work rival, Roman. This book is very sweet. I would say it's a 3.5 to a 4-star read for me. The end of the book makes you very excited for the next book, but it is cute. There's a lot of yearning between these two characters. All they're really asking for is a shot to be together. The pacing is a little bit slow and it is for a younger audience. I think this is a YA book, but I did really enjoy it. Then I read The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. I would say I felt connected to about 3 books this month, and this was the second of 3. So The Nanny by Lana Ferguson covers our main character, Cassie, who needs a job. She is running out of money. She can't afford her apartment, and she finds a listing for a nanny by an executive chef or a high-level chef named Aiden. So she goes to start to work for Aiden, watching his 9-year-old daughter Sophie. A couple weeks into Cassie and Aiden working together, Cassie discovers that Aiden was a subscriber on her OnlyFans. This book is so silly and so modern and so fun. If you like romantic comedy, you like low stakes and silly plot lines, you should pick this up. There is a lot of spice in this book. Cassie and Aiden bang every which way. If you skip the spice scenes in this book, I think it will be a lot shorter. I think I gave it like a 3.5 to a 4-star because I wasn't a super huge fan of the conflict, but this book did reinvigorate my desire to read, although that didn't really continue throughout the rest of the month. Next, I listened to Anxious People by Frederick Bachman, the third book that I felt most connected to. Reading a 5-star book and listening to a 5-star book are different experiences for me. Anxious People is a book about a hostage situation in a apartment viewing. That sentence was really hard to get out. I had to do that take like 3 times. The 2 books that I've read for him, A Man Called Ove and Anxious People, both do this thing where you get delivered small pieces of news and small pieces of information throughout the book until you have the full complete picture right near the end. Anxious People is a lovely book. I highly recommend listening to it on Audible or audiobook. The narrator is amazing and made the experience way better. She does a really good job at bringing the humor out of Frederick Bachman's writing. I really enjoyed that because I didn't get a lot of humor when I was trying to physically read it. Oh, I have the actual physical copy. Did I hold up Throne of Glass earlier? I don't know. I only have 2 physical books this month, so I'll probably be popping pictures up anyways. So I'll just put that back down, I guess. I rated this book 5 stars. It's highly recommend. Then I read Be Still My Heart by Emily McIntyre and Sav R. Miller. I read this on Kindle Unlimited. I started this book last month and finished it this month. Honestly, this wasn't my favorite read of the month. It's a romantic suspense about a serial killer that is kind of running rampant in a small northeast coastal town. Lobster fisherman Lincoln finds a body on his boat, and Detective Sloan comes in from outside to try and solve the mystery. I've read an Emily McIntyre book in the past. I didn't love that book. I feel the same way about Be Still My Heart. However, if you are a dark romance or romantic suspense reader, or you've read Emily McIntyre in the past and enjoyed her writing, you should read this book. I'm not trying to say that this book was horrible. It just was not the best reading experience for me. The plot was a little predictable and the romance felt a little bit rushed, and there was a lot of modern slang in this book, and I don't usually vibe too well with that. I did rate it 2 stars. That's all I have to say about it. Then I listened to Love at First Sight by Cara Bastone. This is an Audible exclusive with a full cast. It's on Audible for free right now, and it's only like 4.5 hours. This is such a silly little book. There's no spice. It's closed door. There's not even like an inkling of spice. There's no doors to be had. And it's about these 2 college students who get assigned to a project together where they have to determine whether love at first sight exists. One of the characters, Robbie, is a romantic, and the other character, I know her name. Marigold. Her name is Marigold. Marigold is a little bit of a cynic, and they meet up to interview couples together, talking about whether love at first sight exists. And the cutest part is just finding out the couple's coffee order. It's just so cute. I had such a good time with this book. Listening to it was awesome. The male character is narrated by Santino Fontana, who is old Greg in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which I love. So it was an automatic listen. I also didn't know his name was Santino Fontana. It sounds like cheese, right? Like Fontino cheese, Fontina cheese, Santino Fontana. Anyway, you should listen to this book. It's a 3.5, 4-star-ish read. And last and certainly not least, I read the Mind F series by S.T. Abbey. There is 5 short books in this series. They're about 150 to 200 pages long. You can read them all as one, or you can read them individually. I finished books 1 through 3. So we're going to call it 3 books. This book is about Lana, who is a serial killer. Yep. And she's dedicated to her craft. She runs into, what's his name? Logan. She runs into Special Agent Logan Bennett and immediately kind of start profiling each other. If you watch Criminal Minds, you know, but they're criminal profilers. Lana's done it because she's a serial killer and she wants to be good at it. And Logan does it because he is a FBI agent and wants to catch serial killers. And Logan is trying to catch Lana, and Lana is trying not to get caught. They do end up involved with each other. There is like a love story wrapped up in this. It is a little bit crazy, very far-fetched, but really fun. If you like Criminal Minds, I think you'll enjoy this quick little series. I would say that those are pretty consistently a 3.5 across the board, maybe a 3. They're a fun time. I recommend them to anybody interested, but they're not the best thing that I've ever read. So there it is. That's all the books that I've read this month. 8 if you count the Mind F series as one book, and 10 if you don't. That number isn't nothing, but it felt like nothing. That sounds so sad, but it's true. I mean, notable books this month were really Fourth Wing and The Nanny. Anxious People, of course, but Anxious People I listened to and it was a different experience than reading. I'm gonna try and fix this in the month of August. I'm trying to feel a little bit more connected to what I'm spending my time doing. So hopefully we're moving in a different direction, but overall pretty decent reading month. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!